Rolling. Hello and welcome to CannaSoul with Michelle, CannaSoul Interviews. I have Cory with me here today, and it's a little different from my normal topics that I talk about. But um, I met Cory in Winnipeg and just immediately connected. I was intrigued with our conversations that we had, and just love how free flowing and easy speaking you are, and
Same, lots in common, whether it's spirituality, the love of podcasts, music. I know you when you were here, you were playing a grand piano for a bit there, and
yeah, music connects people so much, doesn't it?
the way things all kind of transpired. You had said something about some singer named McLaughlin that I'd never heard of, and I thought you meant Sarah. So then I did that song, and yeah,
Yeah,
and then
yeah. Michelle McLaughlin's my
spirituality
favorite.
and Michelle. Did you say? Well, of
Michelle
course,
McLaughlin, yeah, for piano.
from one Michelle to the other. Yeah, I have to change my name. No, just kidding.
So what we're talking about here today is that Cory has a gift of being able to channel his loved ones and other entities that come to him. And I've
But mostly the first. There's not a whole lot of the other
okay.
entities, and I think that's a good thing.
Um, so I find that fascinating right now in the energies of all the astrology and everything that really in an age of the mystic now. More people are finding um, different abilities that they didn't know existed in them before. And as we get healthier and we come more into alignment and more in balance in our bodies, more and more people are going to start um, seeing some of these gifts appear. So I'd like to ask you, as someone that has been experiencing this for longer than what this present energy is about, tell me a little bit about how you first discovered your ability to connect with spirit or to channel.
Sure. And that was the first time that I'd ever heard that, or that I can recall anyway, about how certain times it does that. Now, before I get into that, I was trying to make this full screen, and okay, I seem to have playing picture in picture selected. Okay, there we go. Now, whoops. Okay, I see. And then if I make it full screen, yeah. So a little
Well,
while
just
ago
so
we
you know,
talked.
whatever you're doing on that side, it doesn't change the view, and I've got you full view on the side, so
Yeah,
it's
I changed on my side now, but I think I prefer it because it was just tiny at the top, and
oh
now
yeah.
I'm tiny in the corner. You know, but it's okay because it's good. Yeah. Well, we did a call a while ago, and I kind of was telling you that it kind of started with my dad visiting many years after he passed, actually, and so of course I wondered why that was, and I mean, actually, I think the first thing I told myself was that I didn't really. It's not that I wouldn't have wanted it or it wouldn't have been nice, but I didn't really. Life was life had a lot of good things in it, and I was doing fine. And then things, some difficulties arose, and so I think that's kind of why. And also I try to remind myself too that really. And I was thinking about just last night. Actually, I think he was kind of the first loss that I had. I mean, I was quite young, and I've had many more since, that have passed away, and there's different types. But truly, he was probably always there. In fact, one thing that kind of comes up or has came up a couple times recently is um, um, we one of the in our home we have a device that's a shared device, and there was an image that was up, and I swear it was a hawk, but Glenn was saying that it was a crow, and it was pretty high up in the sky in the picture. And I sent it to my half brother, who's been living in other countries and this and that, and been doing quite well for himself as well. And he says, "No, I'm not sure what that symbolizes. You have to tell me." And it was like, "Oh yeah, this may have just been a thing between me and my mother, and maybe the occasional other person that I told, which wasn't him."
Mhm.
um, and that's something we lived out in the country, and almost, well, not instantly, but while we still lived on that property, which we moved from. It wasn't that it was a big home; it was a country home on a short road in Ontario. But for whatever reason, I mean, I was, essentially an only child, but my single mother, maybe she just wanted to be closer to the other town we'd lived in previous. I don't know. And so basically, but I don't remember how many, but I remember the fact that we would see a bunch of hawks and then suddenly just one. And more than on our property, although probably that too, would be when we'd be driving and there'd be one flying along beside us. Um, Now, as far as reincarnation, which maybe you're already planning to ask about at some point, but I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't believe it in the sense that, I'm hoping that when I pass away, that they haven't reincarnated. I mean, I still feel them as I would think and hope to, so I'm guessing that they haven't. And, but how I think it might work is that kind of it's before they transcend to the angelic level, they may be, I experienced it with my grandmother too, actually. They may
Yeah,
be an animal, or some people may want to say ghosts.
right. It's interesting. My sister,
Ghosts and spirit and angels are the same thing. The media likes to say they are, or make it look like they are, but when you start channeling, I guess if you can identify them, that helps.
right.
So
Well, and I found it interesting. My sister, she passed away in 2012 and she had cancer. And there was a couple of friends of hers that also had cancer. And so they would visit together and
yeah,
be
one thing that so many people get. Yeah.
support for each other. And so they all talked and said, well, when you come back, what are you going to come back as so that we know that you're with us? Right? And so my sister said that she would come back as a firefly, and one friend said that they would come back as a butterfly, and another one said as a ladybug. And I
Hey,
thought it was so cool because now all my family, every time we see fireflies, we're like, Jennifer's with us. Jennifer's with us. And
it's
somewhere
so
we
weird.
get
Like, I've
that
heard of those specific examples before, but only just now, because I guess not. Sometimes things aren't meant to come to us until they're meant to come to us. I guess I just realized all of those fly.
Mm,
Like, my dad was big into horses. You would have thought maybe a horse,
right?
and maybe elements, maybe multiple. I don't know. That's something I haven't figured out. But
Mm.
yeah, so it goes from one flying to the other flying. I don't know.
Yeah. So you were saying that it was around 25 years old when we talked before that you started feeling this connection to your angels. Um, what does being a medium mean to you, and how would you explain channeling to someone that's unfamiliar with it? What does that feel like when that comes on? What do you hear or see or feel or
Right, right. I mean, those are some obviously curious questions. Yeah. The first one was, what does it mean to me? I think, and well, it's a special thing, and yeah. So I mean, a blessing you could call it, and I want to say that it means healing because it totally can, but at the same time, I've also, like my dad and maybe the occasional other, communicate to me before that, sometimes they feel just as stuck in a situation as I am.
Mm.
And it's kind of like, they're there with us, and hoping that things improve. But sometimes, they don't have a solution either. And I mean, if we believe that the heavens are high up in the sky, then they're kind of still essentially far to kind of precipitate anything happening, and that. But yeah, but I mean, it's always special. And another thing I've thought about, not that it did, I mean, because I didn't know some of the things you'd be asking entirely, and I also didn't want to start overthinking or whatever, but um it's interesting that because it's at this point mostly only been my loved ones. It's like I remember snippets, but it's even a lot of the recent stuff, and there's been quite a lot of recent stuff. A lot of it is just kind of a blur. I mean, I guess that's one benefit to, and I mean, I guess I can plug this. One benefit to doing them on YouTube is then I can go back and look at things, you know. And I mean, it's not that they're not special. I mean, I just don't have a good memory sometimes. I don't know what it is.
well,
I mean,
sure,
I
like
know
if
we.
it's something that's happening to you, like kind of all the time or just randomly. It's just it's part of who you are. It's hard to separate like, oh, when this is happening, I'm channeling, or oh, when this is going on, right? I don't know. Like, do you hear a voice or do you just feel called to do something, or do you feel like a presence around you? Does it change the temperature in the air at all? Sometimes people say when they feel a ghost
Or
or
well, I
or
experienced
they
that
get
anyway.
cold.
No, I mean obviously the presence thing. As far as the hearing, and not always, but if I knew the person and I knew what they sounded like, but I mean, so often it used to be a bit more varied, but honestly, I feel like many years ago when it started, it used to be more in writing. Like the first time was out loud, and so it was spoken, but like my dad did say my son, you know, and that, and right almost right after, I don't know if it was because of like just like like that was kind of the first time, like kind of I don't know, shocked or felt surreal, whatever it was. I did write it out, and who knows where it went
Yeah.
after that, not me. But it did stay in here. But what came from writing it out was Love Dad at the end. And so recently I did actually do an improvised theater thing on the YouTube channel. And I don't remember what came before it, but the bit that I'd heard from him at his first visit came out, and suddenly it was a mini scene. And but there was something else. Oh, but I say that they're sometimes a blur sometimes, and I don't know if I was because I don't know. I mean, I sometimes keep it kind of more hush and personal, and unless I feel comfortable with sharing it with the person. So it just, and I mean, people have different levels of acceptance or belief or whatever. It's nice when things can coexist, like religion can coexist with it and
Oh
all
yeah,
this kind of stuff.
totally.
But so even though like I in some Facebook groups and every now and then I go to those or whatever. But yeah, it really doesn't come up much. But as far as things being a blur or whatever, I mean, kind of similar to, and I hadn't even thought of this until just today, writing out my dad's first visit. Um, it wasn't that long ago. It was this friend of mine passed away end of January, and I found out like it just came into my awareness kind of a week into February, and it was an interesting weekend for me as it was, and a lot of them are pretty relaxed, but and not that it wasn't, but and because another interest I have is, and we were worried that like Glenn wanted to run the dishwasher just a little bit before we started. Hopefully, it wasn't too noisy. He said you could close this door, and I was reminded of when one of his photographer friends came and wanted to kind of you know close things off for lighting reasons or whatever, and that. And yeah, I was doing something else that I really enjoy doing, which is like photography, and I was actually it was a fashion show, and then the very next day I was laying in bed, not trying to sleep. I was just the other person in the home was in that room, and I was too. And I'm looking and browsing my phone or whatever. I'm like, oh my god, no! And like literally, I can't believe how quick it was. But like within half an hour, 15 minutes, half an hour, I guess I had been starting to get into uh, but I would say just kind of starting to get back into doing YouTube videos. And this particular friend was a karaoke host in the city. And so, music, even though I don't know if we'd say she worked in the music industry, she kind of did. And it's something that I've always loved. And she was always such a cheerleader, not just to me, but to everybody to, have fun, sing, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, in her obituary, there was a line from a song. So that was one of the songs I did. And I was thinking about other songs from the karaoke days. And I found myself doing a tribute video, like, and,
Do you
and,
feel music really helps draw in some of that emotion and some of that
well, and yeah.
energy? Yeah.
And when I think back about that, I do kind of think for the same reasons. It was like it felt surreal. It was
Mhm.
like part of the healing, part of the acceptance process, whatever we want to call it. And maybe it was a bit of a nudge too from her. Um,
Do you think the healing is more meant for the souls that you're speaking with, or for you, or maybe for the message that it's supposed to come to for someone else? You know, do you think there's
Yeah, well,
healing in all of that, or do you think
whoever is being channeled for, but honestly, it's like a notice in the back of my mind sometimes. Like I don't always like strongly notice it, but it's coming to mind now. Like when I have done the channeling, it's true. It's possibly healing for both. Like I mean, why not?
Mhm.
They're happy to be able to connect with us and relay some stuff and sometimes I do feel like like especially when it's the first time like I've connected with them that way. It's kind of like, oh, I've never done this. This is cool how you can do this or whatever, and then I find that they are a bit more likely to come again, and or even there's been occasional ones that I've sort of known but not been super close with, but like if they're having a hard time, not that they're not watching, but if they're having a hard time, and that's nice as it is, kind of reaching their loved ones, they know that they can reach me now. You know, they have to understand that if I don't know their loved ones, I may not make that. It may just be more of an us thing. And I mean, like one recently, I had her visit occasionally, and she was in one of those, I guess, kind of meditation ones that I did on YouTube, and it was weird. And this was just like a week or two ago, and I could see, like, because I get flash visuals sometimes too, and I could see blonde hair. And initially, when I thought back about it afterwards, I started to think of the face, or maybe it was just because she was on my mind. I don't know. But at the time, she wasn't on my mind. And I could tell that she wanted to try and reach a loved one
Mhm.
and was a little bit frustrated because that wasn't happening. And then she did say, talk to you later, sweetie, or whatever, and left or whatever.
So she's the
And
one that had you do a whole tour of all the art in your home.
no,
No?
no,
Oh, that was a
that
different
was a
one.
different one, but that one was special again, also recently. And I think, and I understand because you're busy and there's lots my content and others, to keep up with, and your own, of course. But it was interesting that so I did this podcast, and it was someone I didn't really know but knew of, and I don't even remember how on that particular day it transpired. I just found myself doing it, and I'm sure there was something that triggered it, so to speak. But I had a connection on my old social media account with the guy in the community in the States. And we weren't super close, but we would talk from time to time on posts or whatever. And he was, I think, close to my age, late 30s, maybe early 40s. And and I think because I already knew that she'd passed in that, and this was mostly an experience for me to have. Although I do believe spirit leads us to, help guide us along with some information or whatever. Anyway, so I was looking at her obituary, and it said that they had been connected for 30 years, like most of his life, most of mine. And she was a mentor. She has I think it's called Rise Up or Re-Rise or something thing. Um, I want to say it's Ohio, but that could just be where she's from. Anyway, she was also an artist and stuff like that. And yeah, so I mean, when she visited, I saw a flash visual of her sitting in a particular chair that has armrests, and her arms were up on it, and it's kind of a old chair, so it's not, it's got some, I guess you could call it, damage on the arms a little bit. And she
The
was
character.
noticing that and asking about wear and tear, yeah, asking about that a little bit. And then, yeah, because she was an artist, if I can recall correctly, um, I was trying to think of a song to do or something like that. And for whatever reason, yeah, she said, well, you have a lot of art in the house. So I went with the laptop, walked through the rooms, looking at different pieces or whatever. And then I landed in the room where I sometimes do, a full podcast. And there's a full length mirror. And well, there's actually a couple of mirrors in that room for whatever reason. But anyway, I don't use most of them. But and there is already, I guess, some symbology um, connected to that mirror. But I found, and people can hear this more exact on the actual podcast. We can link it to them or whatever. But I found her kind of just trying to, and it's not that I don't like myself. Like I do accept a lot of things within myself, but it still doesn't make it easy sometimes.
Right.
Or
Well,
it's still
especially when we're in different
not
places
as
in your
as
life.
fully myself as I'd like to be, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like a self-love kind of thing that, and then we actually
I
had some.
really enjoyed it because I love when people talk about their artwork and their collections that they've taken in because you really learn a lot about a person when you're like, well, I like this because I like the colors, or I like this because it reminded me of something else, or I like this because it was, I don't know, like all the different reasons why you've collected something and displaying it in your home. It really gets you
Yeah, and I mean, I'd even
hooked on it.
forgotten that some of them were not necessarily great pieces that I did, but pieces great enough to have up, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was funny because she also joked about how, she tried to have, like, because obviously her friends would buy her art sometimes. So kind of just, I guess in essence, trying to say, how it was kind of interesting to her to see her art in her friends' places and
Oh
that.
yeah.
And I
We're our
mean,
own worst critics,
that's a
aren't
story
we?
too. And then when somebody passes away, it's a different story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Mm, I can't remember, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I was saying like I love that it was a self-love journey for you to just to go and talk about your stuff because it's true how we are our own worst enemies, right? We always go, "Oh, nobody would buy that. I created that." But when you look at somebody else's art, you're gonna say, "That's amazing. That's so beautiful. Your talent really comes through." When, meanwhile, you'd be like, "Ugh, I don't know. Like that's going in the garage. That's not
what's
covered."
interesting? It's almost as if she got a little memo that I mean, and I'm sure we're not the only ones talking about it, but again, the energy would come to somebody that can feel it, the most. And like, it has dry spells, I feel like, and I don't sometimes keep in practice with it, but and then it has the opposite of that. And I feel like she was kind of stating, on that point, it's kind of like she knew she was a talented artist and she had lots and lots of people telling her that. But, and I guess an artist way, come to think of it, sometimes she would still be critical of her own work. And she's like, well, I could have done that part better. And people would be like, what are you talking about? It
Yeah,
looks natural and perfect to me.
exactly.
And interestingly, I sense that she's sharing that sometimes it was to the point where it was like, let's just agree to disagree. Like, you're not going to convince me that I could have done that better or not or whatever. But that she's kind of saying now that she's passed and she looks back at that, she sees the compliments she was actually getting
Mm.
instead of her
Own
faults. And I mean,
critics. Oh,
yeah,
critical
yeah.
mind coming through. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, People that have these abilities already, I would I would categorize them, just my own self, like doing my own little dot connecting, but like highly sensitive people would
Okay.
naturally have these gifts more available to them, right? And
Yeah.
what is your experience of being a highly sensitive person? Like that really encompasses a lot of things too. Like even when you talk about,
Autism.
clothing and food and comfort as a highly sensitive person. You want to talk a bit about that in your own
Yeah.
life?
That was one I hadn't quite prepared for, but it makes sense. Well, I think like I can't but not think of like autism spectrum.
Yeah.
Maybe not only, but that's definitely where it comes in for a lot of us. Um, it's and well, we all can be. I guess that's the thing. But it's interesting. Unless this is some sort of self denial or whatever. I mean, I know I'd be lying if I didn't say or if I said that I wasn't sensitive. Maybe I'm not as sensitive as I used to be, but I mean, it's still, and that was actually when we were kind of planning this, we had said, what's the topic going to be? And I kept wanting to kind of also incorporate mental health,
Yeah.
but also realizing that, they're different. Like, I mean, I think, the biggest importance with that is realizing that it's not schizophrenia, for instance,
Right.
because that's constant. It's often not pleasant. Of course, when you don't know what, you have to have the acceptance either way of what's going on and it's okay to label it because then you know what's going on.
Hmm.
But yeah, but as far as like this morning, I had an example with triggers, and it was actually slightly worse for the other person in the home than it was for me, which was a little bit of a surprise. But um, we all get them. I mean, and they can be good things or not as good. And so I don't know if that's an example of me being sensitive or just human.
I would
you
say,
know,
I mean, in my own experience too, I'm on the spectrum myself,
oh, you are. Okay, I
and
thought you.
my daughter is also on the spectrum. And when I see the sensitivities in there, not only to what a neurotypical person might be sensitive to, right?
Yes.
I feel like there's a lot of energetic sensitivities. And when we start looking at some of the things like scratchy clothes, you start noticing that clothes that are synthetic, right? That have no energetic quality to it, feel gross and scratchy and yucky, and you want to get rid of them, right? You don't want to wear those kind of clothes. But clothes that are made with real life spirit clothes, like 100% cotton and linen and even hemp, right? Stuff like that that has a higher frequency to it. It feels more comfortable.
Women are
It's
supposed to have
softer. It
stuff
feels
much, but
good.
I know that they do.
There's
Yeah.
also foods, right? The foods that we eat when you have really high energetic foods like good raw whole vegetables, raw, grains, nuts, good proteins versus low energetic foods that don't feel good, right? Like and then you're repelled by those because they're low energetic frequency.
It's
We
interesting.
can cleanse that, like we can keep that energy clean by bringing in clothes with high frequency, food that has higher frequency, right? Raising those energy levels, and then um, those transmissions, those transactions energetically can come through clearer even.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you know, I've been, and it's hit and miss. Honestly, there has been some good days lately, and then with my health, and it's kind of like I mean, if somebody has a health problem that's noticeable, they're going to notice it. But I'm wondering if maybe I notice it stronger than, or can't ignore it more than I don't know if I should say your average person, but
Yeah,
so it's I'm going to be starting to explore the cannabis options with you and that, which bring that into it. We should try it a little bit,
absolutely.
but because yeah, I mean doctors, it's they don't necessarily get a whole picture. I mean, this one friend uh, that I and yeah, like I did a podcast recently, and somebody that I met in person happened to tune in, and we would start channeling her grandparents. But before that, that blonde lady was there again, and she was hugging them, and I didn't know whether they were connected or not. But she herself, actually, I was recently reminded and found out a little bit more actually just a few days ago. But she herself was like a medical mystery, and doctors couldn't figure out what was going on. Especially, I think she'd had a transplant, and so I guess they figured, and something's still happening. So I guess I kind of relate to that a little bit. But as far as back to the kind of main topic, sensitive to messages. I mean, like I say, I'm not. I wouldn't pick up everything. Just like in a general conversation, some things will be misheard or whatever. But it's interesting because lots of people, and it can always be something to grow and learn and get better at or whatever. But I think that a lot of people are actually fairly good at seeing the signs and symbols. I do, but I think that since I also get messages, that's almost the way that I would expect to hear from a loved one, and so I'm not always looking for the signs and symbols. But I do catch them sometimes.
You say that like most people would be able to see those things, and I would have to like disagree with that in a way that where I find so many people are just like running on autopilot, numb
Oh,
in
well,
their
that too.
world. They don't notice things. People are not aware of their surroundings, not
And
as
then they
much
get
as a
upset.
highly
No,
sensitive
no offense to
person.
them, they get upset and say, "I never feel them around me." Well, you
Yeah.
just not noticing it. Yeah.
Right? And so most neurotypical people are just, they don't need to pay attention to things because the world is made for them. They can breeze through it, they've got the foods they can eat, they can do their jobs that they love, whatever, and it works out. But highly sensitive people, because they're so aware of their environment, they're aware of their body so much that sometimes people think that they're hypochondriacs because of all the things that
Finicky.
they're mentioning in their body. Is this normal? Is it, there's something wrong, there's something this because of that awareness. And I think it's that awareness too that helps you be aware of that energetic boundaries in there, right? The energetic connections.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
oh, you mentioned also talking about bringing in about cannabis, and we are talking about that. And I do feel that cannabis has that way of helping us to bring that balance into our system so that we are open more and we can raise that vibration so that we feel better, right? Most of the time we're just there, average, right? What can our doctor do? What can I, how can I, maybe I'll go for a run and I'll feel better. But most of the time our body is so stressed out if you're not sleeping, if you're not your typical weight, if you're um, low energy, if you're depressed, anxious, right? All of these things are factors that tell us that our body's not in balance. And so working with the endocannabinoid system helps us to bring all of our energies up because when we're flowing clear, right? And our endocannabinoid system is our communication system within our body. It helps balance all other systems within us. And so when those energetic lines within our body and are free flowing and can communicate and everything can run, then we're running at optimal levels
Hmm.
and we can be open more to joy and love, right? And compassion and
That's about
kindness
getting those levels as balanced and flowing as possible. Yeah.
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 So I just love how cannabis, not only is it medicine in that way, but it has spirit to it too, right? It has inherent knowledge. It has ancestral wisdom because it's a plant and it's grown with us for all of those times. And it always gives us exactly what it needs when you're
Hmm.
in a respectful, reciprocal relationship with it, right? When you respect anything, you'll get respect back, and it works well like that.
For sure. Yeah.
Um, do you believe our physical bodies, like the nervous system or our endocannabinoid system, play a role in how you can receive messages or intuitive guidance? Do you believe in that? You see how that can play together?
I'm not sure if I'd actually thought about it that much. Maybe can you rephrase that?
Yeah. Um, um,
Like,
I
can
think that
we?
like our physical bodies, like, and we can separate those out where if we're in um optimal health or in a state where we can receive better, right? We're not focusing on pain so much or hunger or sleep deprivation or something like that. Like if those things weren't distracting you, do you think you'd be able to channel more or more effectively
Right.
or
That's what
more
I kind of
often?
thought you were asking, and I don't think it has that much of effect because I mean, as we know, I've not been 100% lately, but
Yeah.
yet it's been fairly on with my own loved ones, and I think they'd want it to be, just because I'm not at my best, they're not just gonna abandon me, so to speak.
True.
It was interesting kind of as you're rephrasing that, even though we had some, I'm glad we got this working because we had some technical issues this morning, and we're going to try and fit it in. I have an old account that I can only see, but like if I was to send you the link, because you're not in that list and I can't get you in it, you wouldn't be in it set to just friends. But I'm going to see if I can extract the audio or whatever, because I was looking here in Winnipeg, we actually not so I'm not hugely political and I don't really know this individual much, but there was a guy named Jason Schreier who was in the political, and his dad was Ed Schreier, and he passed away recently, and haven't felt anything, but I remembered a video I had where he came to one of the karaoke nights that I was at, where this friend hosts, and he was singing and dancing, play that funky music, whatever, and it's good that they can. I said you'd never see Trump doing that, but and basically, and one of the other ones I was wanting to find, and I mean, on that account, I have so many videos, because actually I have been doing, but on YouTube it's a bit newer, and there's been gaps or whatever. Was not long after my friend had passed away, I was looking at old karaoke videos, and I happened upon one where she was in my suite, and it was about 20-30 minute video, and we were just doing music together. And actually, since seeing it again the second time, there's a part of me that kind of, but then again, I have felt her presence and messages, and so why do I feel this? I don't know. But there's a part of me that I think I know why. I wish that the music was great, and it sounded great. One of the songs we played was Sarah McLachlan's Angel, but I wish that we had conversed with each other in that visit. I think because I could see her in such a strong physical form in the video, I wanted dialogue with it. But interestingly, when you were asking about the physical and this and that, I did sense, but I sense that she might want to be in this a little bit, and I sense that she's kind of just saying that when she was in her coma, like she still felt stuff, and she's not the only one that experiences that, and actually, as hard as everything was, actually really cherishes, because she says, I don't feel like I can as easily visit my loved ones now that I've passed than I could even in that coma state. We were in the same room with each other.
Okay.
I felt them holding my hand, you know. Um, and I didn't find out till afterwards. So it was within my neighborhood, but I didn't know and she was only there for 2 days. So I mean, and obviously still, even saying that, not in the greatest state, and it probably, not that I can't envision, would have left me with a imprint I might not want to have. So I actually prefer kind of, as things are. And I mean, just if I can kind of pinpoint a couple other things that stood out from, the visits I've had with her. I mean, I don't know how someone could not see this, honestly. And I mean, I think that the place where we were at made it even more ironic. But she had passed of, not to be super personal or whatever, but she had passed of diabetes. And so I was at the diabetes center taking a workshop, and somebody with the same first name said the same way. They didn't, otherwise, ages were quite different and such, just happened to be sitting next to me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, but it's true that I'm sure often we don't necessarily know what signs or symbols to look for.
Right.
And I guess the first thing that comes to mind, if I was to give a tip on that, would just be to remember memories. And then, they'll get sparked by different things, whether it's a song on the radio, something you see when you're going about your day. And then I guess I would say, not that I'm not open to doing sessions with people, but I guess I would say just let yourself have the thoughts. And for me, especially with my own loved ones, which is like say, just happens to be mostly what I do, I can usually, there have been a couple times and recently, and I can't remember specifically, where I've said, I can't tell if that's me or them, but I think it's them. But usually I can. And that's really nice because, and then the flash visuals, that's something else too. It's usually small things that don't really contribute a lot, but yet they do.
Right. And sometimes
You
you
know,
can't tell until you go back and connect the dots, and you're like, oh, that was totally part of this. When I see all the synchronicities that line together, it's like, oh, that totally brought me to this point.
like one recent example, one of the videos I did, I've heard that my dad, well, and this is the thing, I've lost so many too, so it's kind of like also trying to figure that out. But if you can see them all, kind of, even if just snippets here and there in the room, and that doesn't happen a lot, then you can kind of differentiate. But he's kind of just happy if I'm hearing from any of them, even if he would like it to be him more often.
Mhm.
And yeah, I remember one time, it was like a reunion, and my dad was there was like a row of four chairs in rows of like three or four or something like that, and there was like three of them there, and actually, so my dad was there, a couple of acquaintances, which I once had a visitation that told me they're now together on dating on the other side, so I guess that happens, and that my dad has kind of adopted them a little bit. I have found out that my dad has a partner, and he had relayed to me once, and I don't know if more than once or if it's just stuck with me, that he related to me in a certain way, but differently, because he was of a different generation, and he just differently, but also very similarly. And now on the other side, just and I don't know when it happened, or if he was keeping it. I don't think he would keep it from me for a while. So it might have been, within the past year or whatever, that he's kind of in a different type of relationship now. And basically, and it's interesting, not long after I found out about that, I was out and about somewhere and I was sitting on a bench, just kind of resting for a moment. And this other guy came and sat on a bench. And I guess I had gotten a bit of a flash visual in the visitation I'd had. This guy looked like him. I don't think he spoke English. And this other guy had like a Mexican or Latin name or whatever. And it was almost like giving me a more stronger visual of this, soul connected to my dad that I'd been introduced to.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, and also, it's interesting. Like I think the autism thing may have some aspect to it, but like my I guess they call them fraternal grandparents, my dad's parents. I never met. They both passed away. Just looking for my water here. Both passed away fairly young, like my dad did, and even my mother only met his father once or twice, dying in the hospital, and his mother had already been long gone.
Wow.
And it's only been in the past few years. Again, they've probably always been around. Like I sense her as just being a really sweet, gentle, caring, nurturing, loving type of person. Um, One big impactful thing that she once said to me is that she knew how hard it was when she got my dad back. I had to lose him. But I remember one time I was sneezing and I saw a flash visual of her like jumping and being goofy or whatever. But she has also shared, and his dad, um, I sense, is a bit more religious. He wants to be respectful to me and my partner, and he knows how much I matter to my dad, his son. So but you can tell he's a bit more reserved, a bit more kind of old fashioned.
Interesting that you can still
But
have different personalities in there.
she herself apparently, she's told me that she was a medium, and she this was again before the digital age, and in the olden days, so to speak. And I actually, since she's sitting here saying, how old do you think I am, the olden days? But but I haven't heard a lot about this, but it sounds like she found some success with it, at times, and has told me that I can do the same. um yeah, so I mean,
You were talking about a part there where you're saying, have the memories, think about those things, right?
yeah,
And I feel again like with people that are on autopilot, and they're just going through their lives, and they don't stop to celebrate their loved ones so much, or to think about things, or to, look at a gravestone and go, I wonder who that person was. I wonder what they did in their lives, right? We don't have that kind of time in our lives anymore, right? Everything just seems chaotic and hectic, that, there's such a culture of doing. There's not as much of a culture of being, and just remembering and bringing in some of those things to
I think
help
it's about
serve us,
finding the balance, which is always a hard thing, and I can preach it as much as I want. I'm still not good
right?
at it sometimes. But it's interesting. I wonder how many people they do, even if they're not. And I mean, I don't go through cemeteries very often, honestly, myself. But how often they visit at least their loved ones' graves, and that's it is. It's an element of, and maybe they tap into it a little bit when they're doing that. But they shouldn't feel bad if they can't, because they can um, have
You can bring
experiences
that
you
up
can't do
anytime, anywhere. You just have to
anywhere. Yeah,
think about
and
them.
sometimes I actually watch other ones, and that gets me in the mode. But yeah, but what's interesting, it kind of makes me think about. I need to take a sip of water here, but this friend that passed away recently, um, I was thankful that I made it to her funeral. I don't know if the obituary had said anything about cremation taking place or whatever. And like with my dad, that's in Ontario. I found some old footage the other day, and it said something about, well, I might like to be buried next to my dad, but it says to Glenn, no biggie if I'm not, or whatever. Like, this was an old video, like I say, but there is a part of me that, even with the ability, feels sad that even if it would take a bit of time to get there, I could visit her grave, but I don't think she has one because she was cremated. And at the funeral, I could tell that there was something set up at the front. So when everybody was heading upstairs to the food or whatever, I don't know if they made an announcement, but I knew that I kind of wanted to go up there. And there was a small line or whatever. And a couple people got in between me and Glenn. It just happened. It was whatever. And I haven't been to that many funerals, and it's been a long time. And I noticed somebody else tapped the urn, so I did the same. I don't remember what I said, and I was a bit of a mess, of course. And then it was interesting because I was able to watch Glenn, who didn't really know this person, look at her picture and stand there for a moment. And a little while ago, I mean, it hasn't been that long, but she told me that she was standing behind it as the people, and kind of like, hi, hi, but also seeing our sadness, and
Yeah.
I feel like I did a YouTube video about that. I can't remember exactly what it was called. I think it had the word funeral in the title or whatever. I mean, they're not going to judge us. We have to get the feelings out. It's
Yeah.
natural. But at the same time,
Well,
it
I'm
is
sure
really
it's hard for them to
for us
see
to
the
see that, for
sadness they
them to
left
see us
behind.
happy. I mean, some people say, oh, I don't know if it's just the way they express it, but they just sound like they just have been so deeply affected that they can't heal, that they can't go on with their life. And they don't want that for us. I mean, it's understandable, but at some point, we have to start the process.
Yeah. I've been lately reading the book Co-Creating with Nature, Healing the Wound of Separation by Pam Montgomery. And I find that her spiritual connection to the plant world and to trees and stuff like that is so beautiful. And I've been practicing with that too. And where I go out and I just connect on an energetic level with trees. And it's interesting, the history that they have too. If you think about how long this tree's life was, and then all of the people, the communities, the neighborhoods, the families, and everything that this one tree has witnessed over time, right? You can almost get a sense of those past ancestors even through the plants. And I find it really fascinating, and I've been like practicing doing that. And I feel we've got a group of us that have been meditating every morning, really building our heart brain coherence, being able to match our heart frequency with our brain frequency so that we can kind of expand our energetic awareness, and we can feel each other's energy across space and time, right? And we just call that in, and you feel that, tingling in your fingers, you feel that rush through your body, you feel like golden sparkles throughout. And I can feel that when I go to connect with a tree or to a plant, and to try and get connected to their energetic wisdom in there. Um,
I actually saw a tree hugger not that long ago in front of a church near, or by a church nearby. I haven't seen that very often. On the topic of trees, though, just quickly, I'm not sure how common this is, but where I'm from in Ontario, they had a I forget what they called it, a memorial tree, I think is what it was called, type of forest. It was almost like a tree cemetery when you think about it.
okay.
And so, I mean, I know that we had one for my dad, but I think it was I personally don't remember at the age I'm at now going to it all that often. Even the grave, like when we went in 2019, I was kind of surprised to that, we hadn't actually intended to go see it. We went in there looking for somebody else's. And my mother says, "Oh, well, your dad's in this one too," and actually, so were his parents beside him. But of course, even that's not to like sound mean or whatever. Even that's kind of just like a symbolic thing that doesn't necessarily, it's not the only kind of connection, the only thing that can bring that connection or whatever. But
A lot of people really connect to that when you plant a tree for a loved one, because then you can see even over the years, watch it grow and have that
but the
connection.
property wasn't very well taken care of either,
No,
so there was that.
okay.
But yeah, so but yeah, nature is also healing, and spring is finally getting here, so that's nice.
Yeah, yeah. I know if our snow is mostly gone now, finally, in Ontario here. I know in Winnipeg you guys have had that gone for quite a while already.
Well, no, actually not that long.
Still
I
some
mean,
patches.
well, no, yeah, well, depending on how you define it, I guess a couple weeks, yeah, or almost
Okay.
2 weeks. But it feels like spring kind of came, or it was really short, like it just wasn't coming, and now it's almost summer.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just how it feels like. But happy about it. That's one thing you were saying something about temperatures too, but I don't think that's necessarily spiritual as much as it is just health and other sensitivities. But like if it's like really, really hot out, I'm not looking forward to it in some ways as much as I also am, because I think it's going to affect me different this year than I'm used to, and I'll just
Mhm.
have to be a bit more careful. But yeah, you
So I
have
have one
any
other
like
point I want to
other
bring in there
questions?
too. Um, I don't know how much else your relationship with cannabis is. I know you say you don't use it regularly or often.
Yeah, not extensive.
And we're going to work on a medical level with drops and stuff like that, on working on balancing your body. But I also find that to me, cannabis is a spiritual ally. And when I use it in a ritual or ceremony, um, and I um, I find that it enhances that creativity, right? It enhances the imagination, it enhances all my senses, so that I'm more aware and I'm more connected. I can use my imagination to create those memories, to create imagery, to do like guided meditations and stuff like that, to be able to connect people to their inner self, to their true self, their true voice. Because for me, over 20 years of antidepressants, I was so numb, autopilot. Like I can relate there, because
Just
uh,
having the disorder can make you numb, and then when you add the meds to it, yeah.
yeah, I felt nothing. I wasn't connected to anything. I didn't have ceremony in my life at all. I didn't have celebrations of anything. It was just, oh, it's another day. Okay, when can I hurry up and get home? And by cannabis kind of opening my mind and connecting to things and being more aware of everything, I just find that I wanna celebrate everything. I want to celebrate our loved ones. I want to and light a candle every time it's a special occasion. I want to look closer to nature and see how I can connect. I want to meet people like you and connect in a different way, like explore everything about you. I want to know what makes you tick and like I find that it helped me expand in that way, like just connect more to the world and develop that energetic bond better. Do you have any kind of
Right.
relationship like
Well,
that?
and it's interesting. I mean, we haven't talked a lot about autism, and I know that you've mentioned, I'll just say, a relative or a loved one of yours, but I didn't know necessarily, you know, I don't think that it comes into play. Maybe that's my own denial or whatever, but like as far as like modern and written communication, but we seem to get each other. And maybe it's because we're both on the spectrum. However, I don't know if you also do channeling, because a moment ago when you were talking, it almost sounded as if maybe you sometimes do. And one thing I think that's important to understand is that I find myself saying this sometimes when I'm doing a video or whatever. Um, Channeling isn't necessarily, I mean, they say the third eye or whatever isn't necessarily, I mean, as much as I say it isn't, maybe it is a little bit, but imagining and being creative, it's just pop, it's there,
Right. But you have to
and
believe that too. And if you can't create that, if you can't
space.
connect to something and it's just a blank, like you still have to be able to um accept it, I guess. Be open to whatever it
Unless,
is, whether it's a sound or a vision or a feeling. To me, what comes through me is just a feeling. I don't always see a visual or words that come through me, but I'll have a feeling and then I can journal it all out and then make some sense out of it. But
unless the soul was that way, but it is. That's definitely something I still work on sometimes, even if I can differentiate kind of, and maybe it's meant to be a bit of both sometimes, but kind of getting out of my own mind. Um, so Glenn, just a moment, please. What's happening? Okay. So it looks like we're not going to the thing then at this point. Okay. No worries. Okay, maybe keep that door open for some air. Sorry about that. Yeah, so I wanted to make sure that we're getting, because I know we've said a lot of other great stuff, but I wanted to make sure that we're getting to your questions and no.
um let's see. Okay, let's kind of sum everything up with even like the angle that I was taking and being highly sensitive, having good energetic cleansing of your body, and possibly bringing in plant medicine as an enhancer. Just a final question in that part of things, like what role does intention play in creating a safe, clear channel?
And I thought of this before our interview today, and like you gave me a little snippet of some ideas you had, and then and I was kind of asking for not everything or whatever, but it's interesting. This isn't the first time where you've asked something. It's like, I just can't do it. I don't really think about it. But when you talk about intention, it's kind of like one thing I have sometimes said lately, and of course, it's not always this way because other things can affect how easily things come or whatever, even if they're trying really hard. But is that sometimes I feel like I can just summon them. Like I just think of them and somehow they get it. Sometimes I've even said, oh, they must have gotten a memo and here they are. Um, but and it's interesting, like since I've been doing this for a while, like I just let it happen. I don't
But
really.
it's funny that you say that. you think of it first and then it comes. You think
Sometimes,
of it first
yeah.
and then it happens, right? So there
Sometimes
is a
it
slight bit
catches
of
me off guard.
intention there. And and then also like when you do your YouTube videos, when you're streaming, like you have this intention of, something's going to come through. Do you ever get that feeling in
Base idea.
what's that?
A base idea. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and then you start
Uh,
streaming and then, you're kind of prepared and then, you get a feeling like that like, oh, I really I get the sense of strong coffee for some reason, or you made that coffee knowing that it connected somewhere. So you've got this that's kind of like, where is this going to tie in,
You
right?
know, that's interesting too, because like as far as like looking for signs and symbols, and I mean messaging is a whole other thing. I mean, like I say, sometimes, and again, happy to talk with people about it and to you know try and be the medium. Not to sorry about the finger, but literally the medium in the equation. But again, I am mostly used to doing it with my own loved ones. But looking at the things that you see all the time. And I mean, like, if you want to tell yourself because you feel like it makes a lot of sense with a certain connection or whatever, that this is the kind of sign and symbol, whether you talked with them about it before they passed or whatever, that you would hope that they would see, there may be days where you won't.
Hmm.
But, and I mean, again, I don't even think about it. It's just, it happens. I noticed it. Okay, next, but intention, especially if you're trying to notice these things more, like, like, and then maybe you'll start to see how much you actually are seeing them,
Hmm.
but not seeing them. But with that coffee thing, that was almost the opposite. Like, I mean, yeah, sometimes I make it better than other times. I don't know why, because I always make it the same. But that particular one, and I guess a bit sensitive to the stronger coffee, and I happened to be rolling, and actually someone who from Egypt, actually, who had seen one of my other ones before, and he actually is Christian. He was a little on the younger side of the age range, but he abruptly left, and I don't know if it was that he says, I'm a Christian and my culture tells me I shouldn't watch this, or what it was.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it could have been. But I also did get a sense of curiosity from him, and I still don't know why that. I mean, maybe I just made a strong cup of coffee, but because I was rolling, I thought that maybe this connects to somebody somehow.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Put
um,
it out there, see what happens.
yeah. So I mean,
Hmm.
that's I think something that I still struggle with sometimes. Is I mean, I do and I don't, but I think I largely do is confidence.
Yeah.
Like if I, you know, if it's something that's so unfamiliar with me, and then anxiety gets into it too,
Right.
and it's kind of like, yeah.
Well, that comes to a good point too, where like, do you have practices that help you protect those energetic boundaries? Like, do you have any entities that come in that that aren't welcome, or that come in at times where you're just like, not a good time? Like, do you set
I mean,
yourself
that's a
some?
valid question as well, and you had said that in the preview, and I mean, this is just me. I mean, other people that do this would have a different answer, but I think it is something that you can learn to moderate, so to speak. Um, I don't find myself needing to often.
Okay.
Like it's mostly my loved ones, and I'm happy when they visit.
Yeah.
I do not really ascertain or try not to dark evil forces, and I also don't really dream about this kind of stuff often. A lot of people experience it in dreams, and they do have that awareness. You know, I feel like I used to dream more. Some people say, "Oh, you're dreaming all the time. You just aren't aware of it." But then, I mean, why am I aware of it sometimes, but not all the time?
Hmm.
And so I don't know if that's the case or not. I mean, you do have the different stages, but I guess it depends on the night too. But I'm trying to think.
I know for myself, like just in energy work in general, when you're working with somebody else, and you're trying to give your love and uh, they might be energy vampires, you can say, right? Where you're just not getting that reciprocity and giving too much, that I find I get too drained and I can't help people anymore.
Yeah.
Right? And I work on building kind of those energetic boundaries so that I can go like, that's your energy, this is my energy. And
We're finding the
even though
balance.
you're feeling like this, it's not gonna change me, right? Like, so really working on creating those boundaries so that it protects me from getting drained by somebody else.
Literally,
And
whether you're medium or not, you're looking for that happy medium. That's what I would say. And I just came up with that now. I will say though that, I mean, well, okay, just I guess three things, and then if there's any final questions, and but it doesn't look like we're rushed, but
Okay.
energy wise and this and that, yeah. But so I want to talk about dreams a little bit more. Even though I said that I don't feel like I have those type of dreams very often. Um, but the only other thing is kind of to that question that you just asked a moment ago is I will never forget that I did have, and this is not, like it wasn't scary. I knew that the soul was not somebody I was connected with, but that I was familiar ish with the sister. And so I don't even remember. This was a number of years ago. I don't even remember what the messages were. I do remember writing it into binder note paper, um, but like, I mean, I keep my nails fairly short, unlike that other famous medium, Teresa Caputo. But and you know, I didn't remember scratching my hand to the extent that my hand, like it wasn't bleeding or anything, was scratched. And I
Mhm.
later realized that it was connected to him being frustrated, like like
Oh
talk,
yeah.
kind of thing. And that's the only time that kind of thing has happened. But as far as like respecting, when you're like, I've had times where like it's not somebody I know, but it's somebody that is trying to make a connection or whatever. It's not often. Usually it's like, and again, like this isn't often either these days, but it's like if I think what it is if they know that I might be connecting to their loved ones soon, they want to start giving me stuff. They don't want to wait. Sometimes they've been waiting a long time, to make that reconnect or whatever. But yeah, if I'm trying to sleep or whatever, and most of the time, it's pretty good. I mean, sometimes my own mind still keeps me awake, but yeah. I mean, I'm sure that there are some that don't have that, but I mostly find it. And as far as dreams, I do also offer dream analyzing. Not really into hearing about nightmares, but just dreams that you're trying to figure out meanings from. I have a group online. I haven't done a lot with it, but kind of in that realm. But I did have one which was really odd. That was kind of spiritual. My grandmother, the one I've actually met in my life. I mean, we lived in different provinces for a lot of it, but we were fairly close. And she had already passed away a few years prior. And in the dream, there was a white car, which I believe they had at one point in time. And we were trying to get my grandmother in the car. This is a while ago that I had this, so I don't remember it super strongly, but I think we were trying to help her pass away or something. And her other granddaughter who lives in Edmonton was in it. And it's like I was like, there was some sort of struggle that my grandmother was having, like like she wasn't going into the car without a little bit of effort,
Okay.
a little bit of a push. And I remember I said, well, I have to go tell Denise, her other granddaughter, and that. And I have since, although she's not in a lot of communication, like we don't have any problem with each other, but she's just not, for whatever reason, in a lot of communication. But the one day I did email her and just said, I had this dream a while ago. And I think what it might actually be trying to tell us is that, you maybe weren't able to come into the city to see grandmother as she was passing away as often as you would like, and something to the effect of, she's not holding it against you, those kind of things. Um, but yeah, and the other element to it might have been that they were cremated. And so, honest and truly, I really didn't feel their energy as much.
Mm.
part of it, people will sometimes say that, well, that's a feeling that goes along with, somebody being cremated. And I do relate to that, but I wasn't really telling myself that all that often. But when I wasn't noticing, I sometimes would. But then when I had that experience that I mentioned about my friend's funeral, even though I didn't notice it in the moment, it's like, no, they transcend whether they're cremated or not.
Hmm.
And that's, yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you feel like you have any other message that you would like to share with our viewers today about this?
I know that this is done on Zoom to be posted after the fact. So if we have viewers, I just don't see that. Oh, there is a chat thing. Much I'd be surprised.
It'll be
No,
future viewers when I post it.
what's that? Oh, well, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, we weren't sure if we had something else to go to this afternoon. I think we're just going to be, and I've enjoyed it, and I thank you for doing it with me. It has taken a lot out of me, I feel, but I know that that's something that we talked about before starting was, maybe, and I mean, I feel like some of my loved ones, but I think it was last night for the past couple nights, there's been a woman with dark, kind of either spiky or just styled hair in a certain way that's kind of stands out. This is the second time recently that it's like I'm seeing a hairstyle, and
Okay.
I don't personally connect to that I know of. So I'm not sure if that's for someone who's going to end up viewing this or for you.
Hmm.
I also am sensing a bit of a unique laugh. I'm not hearing it strongly, but like I'm hearing laughter, um, and essentially just saying that she was always the life of the party. She still is, you
Yeah.
know, from there, and that yeah, that she's always just she seems to be really worried about a grandchild that's still living, um that's like under 10. And I guess it's interesting, there's different levels of flash visuals I'm noticing and being reminded of, or maybe it's not that it's not a clear visual, and it is, it's just boom, like I saw like a kid under 10. Actually, not long ago in one of my videos, I actually channeled the first child that I've ever felt. And so that was kind of interesting, and that's on the YouTube. Um, and it's interesting also because I was thinking, I don't know how I would do this yet, but I know you were talking about watching one of my videos around a campfire, and I was thinking I could do a camping theme because I mean I don't camp a lot these days, and who knows when I will again. But and I'm sensing that this so is like saying one of her favorite memories of like this time of year when the weather's getting nicer is camping and cottaging. Um, yeah, and huh, and I sense that she's actually thanking us both for doing this because there's important stuff that that can be very healing for someone to hear, and she says the world needs healing
Yeah,
these days.
definitely. I agree.
So I don't know if that's somebody you're familiar with or who it is, and I
Yeah.
hear, and this is, but maybe just a coincidence, like it kind of connects with someone else I'm thinking of, but not with all those descriptions. But I'm hearing like a name that sounds like either Elaine or Lonnie or something like that.
Hmm.
I
No,
don't know if
that's
it's a first name or a last name. I think it's a first, but
I'm not putting it together right now. Just trying to
maybe it's for one of our viewers. I don't know.
maybe
But maybe something
and maybe it wasn't a grandchild, maybe it was a different relation, but
like a niece or a nephew or
yeah, I
yeah.
don't know. Maybe
Hmm.
there were some connections in there. Some didn't all match, but yeah, I felt like there was some message in there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Well, I enjoyed that today. I
I'm
do
glad
have
we
to
got
say,
it to
like, I
work.
had a really interesting experience when I was listening to your meditation the other day. And I do believe that there's synchronicities all through our life and that things happen for a reason.
Mhm.
I had that queued up all day. I was gonna watch it at some point, maybe on my break at work or something, because I know there were some things in
It
there
was
you
cool to
wanted.
hear. Cool to hear. Yeah, feel free to share whatever you want from it. Yeah.
And then so um Andy had lit a fire outside and was just sitting by the campfire, and I was sitting inside listening to my daughter speaking, and I wanted to go out to the fire, and by the time I was,
Like enough of that. I hear that all the time.
yeah, by the time I was ready to go, Andy was already back inside, knew that he was done, but that kind of worked out perfectly because then I was like by myself. Um, I did my plant medicine and then I was listening to your meditation. I didn't know what was coming, what was coming.
And neither did I. Like as we both know, it was slightly improvised, and it was, I think, the first one I've been in meditations. I have once or twice led them, but that was the first one I'd ever done to YouTube.
Yeah,
The
and
first one I
it
applied a
was so
picture
off
to.
the cuff, but it spoke so directly to me. Like every thought I was thinking, you were right there. You were right in those thoughts. And I was like, okay, I am right where I am. Thank you. And then breathe. And I was like, how do you know I breathed like right exactly at that moment? And then like, and just I cried like because I knew it was written for me. Like it was so connecting and just a reminder of how to find joy, find love and be happy with where you are right now, right
And
today.
that's the thing about a content creator, especially someone who's posting videos. I mean, it sounds obvious, but truly, I mean, they're not just for us. We can start them thinking that they are, or we don't know sometimes, but it's, and like I say, I'm kind of, even though I have quite a few up there, I'm still relatively new at putting that stuff up there. So it's I don't know what word to say, validating, maybe not, but kind of like it's
Yeah.
interesting to hear that. Like when I initially did it, and then just came back in, but it was, as you probably also realized, and anybody that hears it would realize, it was also kind of something I was going through.
And I could feel
And
that too, right? I could feel what you needed out of that and those parts, and then the parts that I needed, and then even like totally love the humor that you have in there, those little puns in there.
yeah, it's really, it's interesting to think about all the different types of meditation that there can be and the different ways of creating them, and kind of get, if you can adapt it in different ways, then it's more likely that more people can benefit from it, I guess. So
Yeah.
yeah, um, so that's good. Good. I guess I don't really have a meditation practice that I do daily, but we'll see
Yeah.
if
Maybe
I
I'll
might in the
develop
future.
one.
Yeah, yeah.
Get really intentional, set your space, bring in your meditation, purposely channeling someone, close off that space, set your energetic boundaries.
I just have one other kind of thought that kind of is coming to mind. Um, and I don't know if it's you or a viewer that maybe this is for or whatever, but I do feel that there is a difference for me, even if it's not really defined or it's small or whatever, in channeling my own loved ones versus somebody else's. I mean, they aren't familiar with me. And I think one thing that maybe we should realize is that, well, sometimes people surprise, or I find it surprising when I hear people ask questions that I think are obvious, like, are they in heaven now? And I always think, well, they've passed away, like, and if they're a good person, then, um, but, but yet it's interesting how knowing that can be very healing and comforting in that. And I mean, we still have to wait till our time to, but and I find that hard sometimes, even if it's been a while, although it gets a little easier. But yeah, it's kind of this idea of like, I don't know. I was watching a video the other day, and they were saying something about, oh, even if they were shy, they would want to make it worth it for the other person. But at the same time, I didn't think of it until now, is that maybe also the medium internalizing or having an expectation, as so many of us do, on what's going, like maybe they still will be shy, but still give the sense that they're there and that they are fine or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, or not whatever, that they're fine. Um, One other thing I just want to share that I have learned in doing this, is that, and I'm sure some people have heard this kind of thing before, but when a soul passes, they go to not necessarily a specific age, which is maybe why sometimes, certain things are different in some ways over there,
Yes.
and so
Time
what
doesn't
you might
mean
expect,
anything.
what we might expect as from our realm, from their realm, may just not may just be a little silly to expect. But like, so they maybe don't go to, well, they go to good health. I know that's pretty well known, and I agree. But they also go back to their favorite age, which I imagine must be actually kind of hard for them to pick. But when I think of my friend Ray, for instance, like, she got diabetes at a young age as a child. And one of the things she told me was that she was worried that her childhood was going to be taken from her. And if I remember that visit, I don't think a lot was said, but it sounded like that was her initial feeling, but mostly she managed. That her 20s, which is when I met her, were pretty good. She had to do the monitoring she had to do and whatever else. And then in her 30s, and she passed away early 30s, and we weren't in a lot of contact. In my 30s, I was in my 30s already, at that time. And that's when, she was in and out of the hospital more and this and that. And so she says, like somewhere around my mid 20s, I didn't have too many complications. I was enjoying my life. It's not that she wasn't enjoying her life before she passed, but her health was taking more of a toll on her, which was making it harder. So it's interesting, if I don't know if she's just told me this because she thought I'd see something in it or not. She passed at 32. I think she's actually maybe 23 now, which is ironically probably pretty close to how old she was when I met her. So that kind of whatever. But I mean, at the same time, we can just be happy to know that they're better, that they're enjoying life where they are now, and yeah, we'll you know um, there's been a couple times, and I know we keep trying to wrap this up, but there's been a couple times where I've thought of a former coworker of mine of an old job, and for anybody that's dealing with health issues, theirs or loved ones, and I mean, sure, there may be some variables, but I'm thinking epilepsy at the moment. And I remember that she once said, like, it's not really in my control what this disorder is going to do. I mean, sure, you can do stuff to help it, but at the end of the day, no sense trying to control it. It's going to do what it's going to do. She also had said something about not sweating the small stuff. I mean, hard to differentiate sometimes or whatever. Um, it's been a while, but I've had some impactful, and I know I typed it and printed it out when I had a working printer at one point, but um, I mean, that was a sign and symbol right there. So I guess I feel like I can't be made aware of everything when it happens. So she'd already been passed away for a few years. She passed away in 2015. We light incense at the house, and one of the tops of the boxes had came off and was on the living room floor. I didn't notice it until the morning when I came down, and it was right around when I found out, like within that day or the next day or whatever, and the top of the box had 2015 on it. You know,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it's been interesting, and but right now my mind is kind of mush. I think so.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's time to
we'll
wrap it up.
probably do. Yeah.